Hello, welcome to Podnas. This is a sports show with some Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jarrett Roser. Man. Oh, and we're going to talk about this crazy NBA trade deadline. Also, got a little Super Bowl stuff at the tail end, but let's get into it and not talk about me not pointing the correct way. Jarrett?
Also, got a little football game Sunday, so we'll get to that as well. So
I
yeah,
said Super
I
Bowl at
know
the tail
you.
end.
You just like we're coming in hot. A lot of NBA trade deadline and a little Super Bowl.
Just a little salt-based sprinkle
Just a
of
little
that. Yeah.
biggest sporting event, in the country at least on an annual basis.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, statistically, that seems correct. So, uh, but let's start out with kind of this Louisiana centric news because the Pelicans were very active, not as active as some people thought, but very active on the trade deadline, trading away Brandon Ingram to the Raptors and also sending Daniel Tice over to the Thunder. Let's talk about the Brandon Ingram trade first. So the New Orleans receives Bruce Brown Jr., Kelly Olynyk, and Indiana's first round pick. It's top 4 protected through 2027. They also got a 2031 second round pick. Uh, eh,
You look disappointed.
I thought if they were, when all this talk was that they were talking with the Raptors, is that there was going to be something where Zion's Duke buddy, RJ Barrett, came down. Um, And yeah, Brandon Ingram hasn't maybe, played up to what I think his trade value should be, but getting Indiana's first round pick, who ostensibly is going to be really good the next 2 years, like, and is top 4 protected through 2027, like that doesn't really move the needle much for me. It's not, it's not, yeah, late NBA first round picks don't mean anything to me, really. I know you can find some gems in there. Jimmy Butler was found in there, like Jokic was second round, but generally, if I'm trading away an all star, I want a chance in the lottery, is what I'm thinking.
I mean, look, you're one of your brightest spots on this roster right now is a dude they drafted in the 20s a few months ago. But I think ultimately the return was not anything like we had hoped for Brandon Ingram at one point. But obviously, the fact that this dragged on to this point has repeatedly spoken to the fact that the market for Brandon Ingram was pretty slim. No pun intended with his
Well,
slim nickname. But
I
you
think
essentially
you could have gotten more if like Chicago, and I don't even think what Chicago got for Levine was what he thought, but Levine was playing very well. Levine was offensively, like, has been playing like a man trying to get traded. And we don't need to talk about the Kings just running back the 2022 Chicago playing Bulls. But and
yeah. But look, ultimately, you trade a guy that you wanted to trade and you wanted to get out of there, and there wasn't a whole lot of market for him. Was his contract ends this summer anyway, and you traded him for some financial flexibility. A guy in Olynyk who's under contract next year, who is a big that can
yeah,
hit threes at almost 40% rate, can block a shot here or there. So
and
a
it's an
veteran
actual
big,
big too. Like he's actually
yeah.
got the size of a big, and putting that much on EBC up front is a lot. He's shown that he can handle it, but that's still a lot for any rookie. Just because Daniel Tice is 6'6", Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
A veteran big that complements Misi really well, complements Zion really well, plus a couple of picks again for a guy that, I mean, what you're holding on to him for at that point is just to continue dragging out this saga and either let him walk for nothing this summer or have to re-sign him potentially at a much higher number than what you want to pay him anyway. And so I think it frees up a lot for them in those regards and breaking some of that up and getting some value there while there's still value to be had, as well as you turn BI into that big piece and free up that much more in terms of that log jammed when healthy 2 to 4 type piece of the rotation, where now Herb when healthy, Trey when healthy, it's I mean, you guys go do your thing and don't feel like we're all on each other's toes for 3 spots in the lineup.
Yeah, I also just that key term when healthy has been
That's
the
a whole
Pelicans.
different story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The other story here was also that Zion and CJ McCollum were both in there as well. But news came out earlier today or late last night. I forget which one. That both of them were going to planning to be in the starting lineup for tonight's as we're recording this game. um, yeah, I think. I don't know if they even got offers for CJ. I haven't read anything on that, but I don't think CJ McCollum's value could have been any higher than what it was right now. Uh, And what I kind of would have liked to see from this Pelicans team is even if they kept Zion, is kind of move BI and CJ out, especially with DeJounte Murray being out for the rest of the season with that Achilles tear, which I hope he recovers very swiftly. Um, is kind of making way and room. Like I would love to see Jordan Hawkins get more play, more run, and see what he can really do. And I would like to see CJ get sent to a championship contender, and I think you could have gotten more back for someone like CJ to a championship contender, someone who needs to add shooting, something like that. Um, like a Denver, where you could have had something. At least Denver has a lot of young pieces. You could have gotten something back with that. So, yeah, I think overall, while they did make moves, I just wish there would have been a little bit more from what I saw from the Pelicans front office this trade deadline.
Yeah. I mean, the Tice deal ultimately, which happened first, I don't remember if it was
It's
earlier in the
just they
day
just got cash. They didn't even get
or
anything back.
the whole deal with the Tice deal was just making sure that you got under the salary cap when you didn't know if the BI trade was going to
Yeah.
ultimately reach fruition or what those numbers were going to look like. And so they got under that salary cap mark, and then they made the additional trade as well to get something for BI. I think a fine week. Ultimately,
A fine
it's
week, sir.
it's it's underwhelming in the wake of what you could have hoped at one point for BI to become, or some things we talked about this summer. It's underwhelming on a week where you see the Lakers absolutely fleece Dallas in particular, and just some of the other things happening. And we talked about it before we recorded, just the insanity of when Luka gets traded late Saturday night, it suddenly feels like the whole league is open. And then we're watching people talk about the Warriors really want to make a run at Giannis, or KD's his trade market is being listened to by the Suns. And this week just opened up so quickly, which
Yeah.
coincidentally all happened about 25 hours after I told our friend Tyler Batiste, I think Jimmy moves, I think Fox moves, but other than that, I think teams are probably just going to end up, clearing up some money stuff. And then 25 hours later, Luka, just the most surprising move in NBA
It was
history,
just,
probably.
yeah, it was freaking crazy, man. It was wild. It was wild up here, you know?
Yeah. And so
Um,
nothing New Orleans did really mirrors seeing that magnitude or the Warriors Heat magnitude or some of the other things going on. But I think for where they are ultimately, I take away a positive week for the Pels.
what did you think of those marquee trades of the Jimmy to the Warriors, De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs, and obviously Luca to the Lakers? I mean, what's your favorite of those? What's your least favorite? And we can go long term or short term, whatever you kind of want to look at that as. I personally I love that De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs. Take a little bit of the onus off of Chris Paul to run everything. And then also you get to play with Victor, and I mean their two is pretty set, and they didn't have to give up Castle Vassell show on like any of that stuff.
Anything.
Their timeline for when they're going to be relevant just jumped up again as it did last year when we saw Wimby's immediate progress. Yeah, so
I mean, all of the deals you mentioned, the Luka deal, obviously, the Lakers somehow just again fleece the hell out of Dallas. And what's going to happen is Dallas is going to end up being pretty good this year and maybe next year. And a lot of, you know, I would say a lot of Dallas fans, but I don't think they will. But Nico and his 6 remaining fans, Nico Harrison camp over there, will talk about the positives of look at Dallas being a contending team every year, maybe even winning a championship with a team that fits really well. and try to mask the fact that you gave up a consensus top 5
Yeah.
player in the league who's only 25 years old and at the top of his game and fresh off of a finals appearance where he was great during the playoff run. And and so
That's, you notice that my
whatever
head just hasn't stopped doing this the whole time.
whatever
It's
sense
ridiculous how much the Lakers get just they've been set up for the last 4 decades with
well,
just
add
some
another one
trade. Yeah.
because that's what this
Oh.
did is ultimately the cases you can make for Dallas to be strong in the next couple of years, they swung in exchange for the Lakers now being set up with one of the best players in the league, maybe the face of the league for the next decade.
So
And
much fun.
look, have I made fun of Luka for looking out of shape? Sure. Has Luka still been exceptional despite being a thick boy? Yeah, even more so. He's been phenomenal, and now he's going to be that much more driven and go. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
reported over and over and over again. He'll go work with LeBron and probably end up between his motivation and the LeBron factor being in now the best shape of his career moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah,
But
I know it's been said so much, but going to the guy that spends $1 million on his body every offseason, I like I bet you he's gonna pick up a few tips and tricks, and I bet he's gonna be real pissed off, like second gear stuff. It's just
yeah,
it's unbelievable that'll happen. A couple
and
other
even
big. Oh, go
well,
ahead. Go ahead.
as that happens, the only question you have for the Lakers is okay. This year they really don't have a big. They're going to be great for the long
Well,
term.
no, they got one.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
when the Luka trade happened,
Oh, yeah,
that was
yeah,
that was the question mark. You knew they were going to be well set up. Luka's going to end up staying there when it's time for him to re-up, and they're going to be great for years to come, built around Luka. And then Wednesday night, you add Mark Williams, which you move off of some nice young pieces for the Lakers, but you get a 7-2 center who look, we've talked about before. We love North Carolina, and so it sucks to think a Duke guy is real good. But Mark Williams is a really good young
yeah,
center to
yeah.
throw into the mix there around the other
And
pieces. And
and
so
apparently Luca met with management like shortly after like being introduced and kind of talked to them about players that they would like him to go after as far as big man. And that was a name that came up. So even getting a guy that Luca kind of likes that's long, that can catch a lob, things like that. Like think how good Derek Lively did. Another Dookie, but think how well Derek Lively did in the playoffs last year.
So they're now set up for more success right now in the immediate future of this season than it looked like they might even be after the Luka trade, and then obviously the long term. But
Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned the Fox trade. The Spurs get really good for a long time now, and then the other big headliner was KD wants nothing to do with going back to Golden State, so Golden State pivots and takes Jimmy Butler off of the Heat's hands. The Heat get a nice return. Meanwhile, we get Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green on the same team, which
that's got to be wild.
should be hysterical if nothing more.
Yeah, I really, really wonder how that's going to go. That should be a lot of fun. A couple other things just to go through with that trade deadline. Kyle Kuzma got flipped for Chris Middleton. Also, uh, man,
The
James
Bucks were
Wiseman.
really active, just getting
Yeah,
more athletic, essentially.
James Wiseman is flipped again. He moves over to the Raptors. That's like his 5th team in however many years. From a
Oh,
former
that's
number 1 pick. It's just weird.
it's almost as
Uh,
many as Dennis Schrader with 4 this week. Who
Yeah,
gets
that's absolutely ridiculous. Jonas Valanciunas, former Pelican, also goes to the Kings. Weird. It feels like they have Sabonis, and it feels like both those guys are still starting level
feels
centers, but
feels like
sure.
those big Europeans are going to pass the hell out of the ball inside inside the painted area, and what you're just going to be a Harlem Globetrotters across the lane
I
between
don't
those
even want
two.
to know how many threes Valanciunas is now going to take now that he has Sabonis in the middle. I think that's just going to be so much fun to watch. A couple more. DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks goes over to the Cavs. I think that's great for the Cavs. They were already so good in the East. They really don't give up too much, and I think add to that core. I think DeAndre Hunter is going to be really, really good over there. And I know we talked about Mark Williams going over there, but I think Dalton Connect going to the Hornets, and then whenever Brandon Miller is able to come back, he was playing really well. Between that and LaMelo's almost all-star and Dalton Connect, I think, we could see the Hornets not be cellar dwellers next year. I think that could be fun to watch. Anything else of note for you?
I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. I mean, there was a lot of activity, and that surprised me because, as I mentioned, I went into this week expecting it to be relatively quiet and underwhelming, as so much has been in some of these moments in recent years, in particular with the new CBA and whatnot. But obviously, we saw an awful lot happen, and so after a summer where we heard so much about how the new CBA was going to hamstring a lot of teams, it was pretty exciting to see every name in the league minus
Yeah.
3 or 4 guys suddenly in play.
I mean, that Jimmy Butler trade involved 6 teams. It's ridiculous. I saw this meme of people like passing salt shakers back and forth, and it looked like a car intersection, and it literally said like, when Jimmy Butler finally gets traded, all the pieces moving. It was absolutely ridiculous. So another NBA trade season in the books. Let's do it.
You got to go to the board like Bobby Marks as Charlie Kelly looking for Pepe Sylvia with just different ribbons and
Just
markers
ripping
every
a
direction.
cigarette. Just yeah.
Mhm.
That is it for our NBA trade coverage. We'll obviously be keeping up with what this means for the Pelicans as we move through and see kind of what they kind of look like, because it's not like they're last thing I'll say, this isn't like a move. I know they've been playing very poorly, a lot due to injury. But
I hate that they're injured, but they're, as we
yeah,
record this, they're back in last place in the West. So last night was a big one for the tank race that I've been watching.
yes, absolutely. Next up, let's talk about the Super Bowl, that little old game that happens after the trade deadline, I guess. Sometimes. Eagles, Chiefs, New Orleans. It's happening. Go ahead.
Was that you that a week ago talked about how the NBA really needed to change its schedule up because the trade deadline gets overshadowed entirely by the Super Bowl? And
okay, and yes, I did say that, but also generational talents don't get just traded. Okay.
So I mean, my expectations for the trade deadline certainly ended up being a cold take, but yours did as well, honestly, because all week has been.
No, I stand by my take. I think you do this on another week and don't compete with Super Bowl. Now, it does help that no one wants either of these teams to win in the Super Bowl, so the hype and lead up to it, but they had no clue that that was going to be the case when they
Did they or didn't they? There's a lot of conspiracy talk out there.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, Kyrie, easy.
Look, you line up, you go head to head, you trade your Slovenian unicorn thick boy, and say, look, NFL, you hold yourself until Thursday night, Friday, and then we'll worry about you because this is an NBA week here.
Yeah. Hey. Okay, I was wrong. All right. Not the first time we've said that on this podcast, and not even the longest way that we've said it on this podcast. Oh, that's fun. But let's talk about this Super Bowl in New Orleans. Being hosted by, I think, probably the greatest Super Bowl hosting city that has ever. LA is pretty good too because it's so spread out and the SoFi is so big, but the consistency in which, besides that one little snafu last time with the lights going off, the consistency in which there have been Super Bowls held in New Orleans and they've knocked it out of the park is, I think top 5, top 3, top 2 even.
I watched the lights out Super Bowl with a pig, and I'll just leave that story at that.
We don't even need to get into it because it's not a eagle or a chef. So
no, but by the time you post this thing, I'll probably actually be down in the city doing radio row stuff on Friday and whatnot.
What are you doing down in New Orleans?
I have no idea what time you'll have this live tomorrow, but at some point during the day, I'll be on radio with ESPN, the Lafayette ESPN affiliate, co-hosting RP3 and company during the middle of the day, and then trying to bounce over to Fulton Street and see RC and company with the ESPN crew.
Can you find the Ringer Fantasy Football Boys and
the national ESPN crew? I don't know those guys. It's a big city. There's a lot of folks. It's not that big of a city, but there's a lot of folks there.
They've been on Radio Row. I know the last 2 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, go check them out.
Do you
Get some
want
pub.
do you want me to tell them that you're a really big fan and I think they're fine?
Yeah, basically. If you could do that, that would be great. Any predictions? Anything that you think's going to happen? How long do you think John Batiste is going to take on the national anthem? Will he do vocals or will he just play instruments? Will Kendrick diss Drake? Will Tom Brady call Kevin Burkhardt KB within the first 5 minutes of the first quarter? All these are things that we need to know.
I think
And then I
most
guess who's going to win too, but we all know it's going to be the Chiefs. Okay, let's go.
I think most of those I'm with you. I think uh JB goes over on the anthem and that we do get an early KB. Um I don't know what John Batiste, I don't think actual cousin of Tyler Batiste, but we play like he is. I don't know how he's going to approach the anthem, but I do think he milks it a little bit in the hometown for sure. Um, I'm really interested in this game, man. I don't know. We talked about it a little bit last week. Other than just feeling like Kansas City has an inevitability to it, and in
They
particular
have their
to
own Slovenian thick boy. He's a Texas thick boy.
to Patrick Mahomes and his inevitability on big plays and I mean from the play calling on down and then his execution, you always feel like they're going to find a way in
Yeah.
important games in recent years. Philadelphia's had a little bit of that to itself this year too, where it's not always pretty, but they're winning games and whatever they need out of Jalen Hurts and company, they're finding ways to get it. And so I think it's going to be fun. And there's a lot of reasons to think that Philadelphia theoretically should be the better football team on paper this year. But I feel like Kansas City gets it done. Some of the injury and illness dynamics that are going on with the Eagles also kind of makes me a little bit uneasy about where they are right now. And then obviously if it's a close game down the stretch, how do you bet against Mahomes?
Yeah. I mean, that is true. That is kind of what the theme has been the last two Super Bowls. So why don't we find it one more time? It's also wild to me that Hurts has been to two Super Bowls in his first four seasons, and the last person to do that was actually Patrick Mahomes. But that gets kind of thrown to the side just because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Um,
And
yeah,
so many of the headlines for the Eagles right now are Saquon, who has been
Saquon's birthday. It's going to be his birthday Sunday.
unreal.
Did you know it's going to be Saquon's birthday on Sunday? Oh, I've heard it so many times. That should be something that I think there's also a prop bet. I don't know if it's on FanDuel or DraftKings. I believe FanDuel that the word birthday will be uttered more than like 2.5 times on the broadcast.
Oh yeah. Yeah, take the over on that, folks at home. I feel really good about that. If 2.5 is the number, go.
Yeah. I also, I think there's also, and I was like actually listening to, you can tell I was fanboying because I was listening to The Ringer. They did a prop show. And there was something for the first person to gain 10 yards, and Xavier Worthy was something like 30-1. But like there are a bunch of times where the Chiefs maybe run an end around and maybe they try something early and he gets off. If the Eagles get the ball first and have to punt, immediately something like that maybe Xavier Worthy gets an end around or Patrick Mahomes gets a scramble. I think he was like 11-1 or something like that. So getting plus odds for something like that obviously Saquon was the first option for that. So there's some fun prop bets. This I think my favorite time. The bar that I work at, we're doing what's called Super Bowl bingo. So I've made up big bingo cards for everyone. We're giving away prizes. Gonna play all the sound and stuff. It's one of the best Sundays of the year. The best Sunday fun day of the year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I typically watch these games home, like maybe by myself or a small crew, maybe just two or three people. I actually think this year, because of it being in New Orleans, obviously, and big Eagles, Tyler Batiste being in town, I'm going to try and go watch it somewhere with him and enjoy the atmosphere a little bit. And I know these are two teams that a lot of folks are not overly hyped about, but I think it has, as someone that is not overly invested in either team, I feel like it has a chance to be a really good, well played football game
Yeah.
that I'll look forward to.
I mean, save maybe the Bills making this game. I think these are the two best teams that we've seen all season. I mean, obviously, Kansas City really only lost one game. Throw that last game of the
Yeah.
season out because they really didn't play anyone. They only lost one game, and it was to the Bills. So I see that if the Bills won, then yes. But of those four teams, like these were the two teams that we probably most likely knew that we were going to see. They were kind of inevitable. as Thanos would have put it in the Marvel universe. So hey,
Yeah. So quit hating on it, man. It's gonna be good football.
like YG said, why you always hating? Hey.
Also,
That is
also,
oh, go ahead.
whatever that's the prop bet you rattled off that I forgot to address. Whatever you said the line is for the K dot Drake disses, go ahead and take the over on that as well.
I mean, yeah, the man just wore a Canadian tuxedo to the Grammys while he won more Grammys than Drake has his entire career. He petty. All right. Uh,
Award winning pettiness is beautiful.
do you have anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Not really, man. Wrapping up a lot of Prep Red Zone Louisiana rankings update stuff, which is always far more time consuming than people realize. I mean, we're looking at 1,000 some odd kids around the state that I'm grinding through huddle film on most of those guys. And so now that that's kind of finally Reginald Vell Johnson wiped the hands clean, I can actually get back out on the road a little bit more and get some more interviews up on the channel. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think other folks should as well.
And go check out the Louisiana versus All Y'all channel on the YouTube channel. We will be having this come to all forms of podcasts and podcast listening very soon. That is coming up shortly. I won't tell you when.
Big.
You can follow us on Instagram at podnas_LA. We're going to post some content up there from this episode, as well as maybe some previous episodes from the second season as well. And then listen, guys, thank you to Brad Kemp for the theme music that you heard on the way in. Appreciates us him in Second Bedroom Studio. I want to give a shout out to me for editing this episode. It's award season, so I'm really just going into it. Shout out to Jared for just being here and doing
just showing
everything for Louisiana versus All Y'all to give y'all the most comprehensive look at Louisiana recruiting and Louisiana sports that you guys have, that y'all have. That's all we got for you today. Podmas out.